There's the microphone coming.
This movie, is it on? Yeah. Thank you very much for a very, very interesting, initially I said nice. It wasn't really nice, but interesting documentary. Were there situations in which you intervened or felt like intervening, especially with the cases where the parents couldn't really afford the extra care that was necessary?
You know, as a documentary filmmaker, that's always one of the questions you ask yourself, right? It is an ethical question. But I think, I know clearly as a documentary filmmaker, I can't intervene, right? Because I think if I do something, then they will be beholden to perform for my camera, and I didn't want that. But it is always a question, because of course they are impoverished women. What are you gonna do? And it's always come up, and it's always a back and forth. But I think clearly there is a line. You know, I'm a documentary filmmaker in this space, and I'm documenting their lives. No, I come to the conclusion that we couldn't really intervene.
Yes.
I noticed that many of the women actually were wearing braces, which is not exactly a cheap treatment. So I was a little bit confused, like they have all these needs and yet somehow either they or the government can afford to give them braces. So I was wondering if you know anything about that.
I thought it was only one woman, right? That's interesting that you, the woman who
I
kept
had
her
braces
money.
recently, so
You know, you have braces so you notice. I did really,
I
that's
thought there was
interesting.
one, and yeah, my husband also noticed there were multiple ones. So.
Yeah, but I guess, you,
That's the next film.
but no, that's an interesting question and an interesting observation. I just remember the woman who wanted to keep her money, she had braces because she was asked. Yeah, so it's interesting that you notice. I don't have I guess an answer to your question of why they chose braces. But I guess it would be like priorities, right? I mean, who am I to say that that's not a priority for them, right? If they want to spend that money on braces. Yeah, it may have been free. I don't know.
I don't see any other hand at the
Right
moment.
here.
Oh, okay. Please.
Well, thank you very much for that excellent film. My question would just be, is this, if you say it was portrayed before in films, is this an exceptional situation for Manila or the Philippines, or do you have hospitals like that throughout the entire country?
No, this is a public, it's been covered before in print media. So there have been articles about this film, and not really a full-on documentary that I know of. No, there are many kinds of hospitals in the Philippines. This is a public hospital, which is a last recourse for women like Leah and Ira and Lerma. But there are, for lack of a better term, and I hate this term, but more like Western-looking hospitals that that serve like the elite, say. So there are those hospitals. I'm gonna tell them the story when you get it. Okay. We both got, Nadia got ill when we were filming the documentary, and so at some point I said, Nadia, I have to take you to hospital. And she goes like, what hospital? I'm like, not for that, but I'll take you to hospital. And then so I took her to one of the hospitals that, have a better resourced hospital. And the relief on our face, she goes, oh my God, this hospital here exists. But they do exist, This is one of the 3 or 4 public hospitals that serve the very impoverished people in the city.
So I think this would be also interesting if you could remain when it comes to how you tell the story. It's certainly not only the story of these women, the protagonists, and also not only, at least I have seen it, not only as a film about this hospital, but something that stands as a microcosm for a larger macrocosm. And I wonder if you could elaborate when it comes to the structure and the way of how you decided this should be in, this should not be in, and this is the focus of how we want to tell the story, of how you wanted the macrocosm to be seen by us, the audience.
I think the microcosm is about the the reproductive health and justice and the role of the church without saying it. It's there, and also very societal and cultural expectations of women, and therefore the family planning scenes where women are actually, you're not forced, but you have to educate them, so the lack of education. So hopefully it tells of the bigger picture in the film. I also wanted to portray the women as, although they are cornered by circumstance, for sure, there's something about them that's strong, and they're full of humor, but not in a way where it always bothers me when people say, oh, they're poor, but they're happy. Well, not really. Humor really saves them. I think humor is what saves their life. And they're humorous in their own terms, right? Because they're sexual beings. They are always talking about sex and their bodies. And I like that. I don't think that's ever been really discussed or portrayed on film. And to me, that was important, for them to be body and sexual and humorous really on their own terms.
What I found very surprising, I don't know if I didn't notice, but I think there was incredible little interaction with the men or fathers of these babies, and I wonder if you decided not to have that in the film as an editor, director, camera person, or is there really such little interaction happening at the time when the mothers deliver the babies? Are the fathers so far away? If you could say something about that.
Well, no one else is invited when they're, it's not like in the US, you know, the whole family's invited when you're giving birth, but it's not like that in the film. There's no space, you know, for other members of the family to be invited into the labor room to, you know, coax them through labor. It's less drama. Women give birth and then the fathers come and visit. But that's what we found. We didn't find any husbands who were invited.
Yeah, actually, to that point and the question you asked earlier, for many of the women, we were the people that were with them from the time they entered the hospital till the time they, and through the birth. There was one C-section we filmed that, luckily for you guys, it wasn't in the film. But the whole time, the woman that was going through that procedure, she just kept looking at us and like kind of making this eye contact, like, you're there, right? It's okay, right? Because we were the only familiar faces that she saw the entire time. And then when we see the women again, when they have their babies, it was like they were happy and proud to, you know, now show off their babies to these people that had been with them through this whole procedure, and their families weren't there for it. You know? So.
Well, you just said it's less drama. I find it tremendously dramatic, almost tragic. How you know how lonely some of the women seem to me. I don't know if this is a misconception of how you're telling the story and how I saw the film.
I don't know. I think it's somewhere in the middle, because I don't think they're very lonely with the other women around them.
No.
There was such, I think, camaraderie between women, and that their babies are with them out of necessity. Of course, there is no nursery. That their babies are with them from birth up until discharge. There's something very warm about that, and I think less lonely. I think that the community within the beds made it less lonely. So I think maybe it all depends on perspective.
I think that it seemed less lonely to me. That I haven't had a child, but I imagine being with all these women rather than alone and isolated in your own room. And there's something communal about that, which is interesting.
Yeah, I mean that is something definitely that comes across fascinating and as a different kind of being not lonely at that moment. But I think looking at your film and also having had a chance of thinking about it for some time, it's you said in the beginning, it's, you know, the attitude towards sex, towards family, and towards looking at yourself as a woman also is like, who am I as a woman in my family, as a wife to my husband? And then if the kid is just there as if, you know, it's like such a big deal here when a baby is born, and there it's just like one
Some
more.
of them don't even smile when the baby
Yeah,
comes
yeah,
out.
that
It's just-
I found like this, you know, this way of how there is a lot of emotional, how should I put it best? Like it's like almost you're expected to experience this as the biggest moment of my life, and you know, when I read about other people experiencing seeing for the first time the newborn child, it's a completely different set of sentiments. I don't know if I get my message across.
Yeah, I get that. I see that. I think after your 7th child at 27, you know, it's a whole different perspective, and you can't afford the first 6.
Poverty is
Poverty is a brutal thing. It brings a lot of indignities, and I think that's what you're reacting to. And I also think like there is such this stigma against adoption, right? Like they said, don't have the baby adopted. You have to take care of the baby. So there is that, you know, just I'm going to keep this baby no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where that sentiment is coming
Yes.
from.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Coming from both sides.